Before most of us even get out of bed, we've already given our attention away. The notifications, the emails, the to-do list flashing on your phone long before your feet have even touched the ground. We live in environments designed for speed, consumption, and constant attention. And then we wonder why we feel overwhelmed, why we can't focus, why we feel behind, why becoming our best self feels exhausting instead of natural. We're told to be productive, to change the world. They say if you do something enough times, you become that thing. If you wake up and go to the gym every day, you're an athlete. If you take art classes on the weekends, you're an artist. If you write consistently, then you're a writer. Most of us believe these habits come from motivation or discipline. If we could just wake up a little earlier, be more consistent, we'd finally be the person we want to be. And then when we can't live up to that image, we internalize it as failure. But I want to suggest something a little bit more uncomfortable. What if the problem isn't who we are, but what we're surrounded by? What if your environment is deciding your behavior long before you do? I'm a fifth-year architecture student at the University of Miami. I've been immersed in architecture ever since I can remember. From drawing floor plans in my bedroom at 12 to modeling buildings in college studios, architecture has been my lens for understanding the world, how we live, move, and connect. And yet, there was a period of time in my life, despite having ideas, ambition, and drive, I felt burnt out. Not because I didn't know what I wanted to make, but because I didn't feel safe making it. I was in an environment where my ideas didn't feel protected, where creativity felt exposed instead of encouraged. So without fully realizing it, I began to shrink. I kept ideas to myself. I chose what was safe over what was true. When you don't feel safe in a space, your nervous system doesn't prioritize growth. It prioritizes protection. Nothing was technically wrong. I was still working, still producing, but I wasn't evolving. My environment wasn't forcing me to become more of myself. It was teaching me to guard myself. The shift didn't happen all at once. I wasn't sure how to break out of the cycle until a studio project in Portugal forced me to see space in a new way. My partner and I were tasked to design a building that addressed stigma around the opioid epidemic in Lisbon. What struck me was how much the city itself shaped behavior long before anybody made a choice. Its topography and infrastructure, the highways, the peripheral streets, the isolated pockets of space, all had unintentionally created conditions where drug use could take root and stigma could grow. Our design wasn't about solving the crisis. It was about addressing the spatial conditions that made certain behaviors easier and more visible. And that's when it clicked. If the spaces of a city can shape behavior so profoundly, then the environments we live in every day are also shaping who we become. Environments don't just reflect identity. They actively construct it. Architecture doesn't just organize space. It organizes attention, movement, choice, possibility. And over time, the small signals shape what we believe is possible. When an environment makes us feel unsafe, we curl inward. When it constantly pulls us in 100 different directions, we scatter. But when it encourages safety, curiosity, and trust, we grow, we expand, we take up space. Here's the part I love. This isn't about forcing transformation. But for those of us drawn to growth, the answer isn't always more discipline. Sometimes it's a small environmental shift. What you first see in the morning, what you touch, designing where your attention goes. James Clear in Atomic Habits says motivation is overrated. Our environment often matters more. It's easy not to practice the guitar when it's tucked away in a closet. Easy not to read the book when it's in a shelf in the corner of the guest bedroom. Easy not to take your vitamins when it's hidden in the back of a pantry. But by placing cues for good habits in sight, the spaces you live and move through, you make growth easier, almost effortless. You nudge yourself to notice what matters, to pick up the pen, to take the first step, to read that book. Be the designer of your world, not merely the consumer of it. Design can't force change, but it can remove the barriers that keep us stuck. And once those barriers are gone, growth happens almost effortlessly. We like to think identity is something we decide in our heads, but in reality, it's shaped quietly through repetition, through exposure, and through the environments we return to every day. We build our environments, and then they build us. The question isn't whether space is shaping you, it's whether it's doing so intentionally. Thank you.